the know-it-all Adam Kelso, the has-been Billy Joe Shearsby, the legend Phil Anderson. Together they are Grupetto Show.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our very first live Grupetto show. Thank you for coming.
Where are we, Adam?
We are at
The Analog Academy.
Which is the coolest new hipster joint in Geelong.
I don't think they like when we use the word hipster. I don't like using the word hipster.
No, not a fan.
No.
Do you remember who introduced hipster to the world of cycling?
Phil Anderson.
Was that Andy White?
Well, we do need to thank Andy White for that. But who remembers Lauren Fignon? Does anyone in the crowd remember Lauren Fignon? Yeah, the man, actually, Greg LeMond recognised Lauren Fignon. We've got Greg LeMond in the
We do
crowd
have Greg
tonight.
in studio, yes.
So Lauren Fignon, for those who don't know, Phil, can you describe Lauren Fignon to us?
He's a very good-looking man because of that ponytail.
And how long was the ponytail?
Not quite long enough, but it was there, and he was possibly one of the first.
Actually,
Actually, after the 89 tour, where Greg LeMond won by 8 seconds in the last stage, which was a time trial that year,
And
only
it-
time I think ever that they've ever had. George, is that right? That's the only time they've ever finished with a time trial? Correct, thank you. There was a bicycle magazine from America where they got both of the bikes they rode and all the clothing, outfits, everything. And they tested, because Fignon rode double discs. LeMond rode, I think it was a tri-spoke or a spoked front. No, it was a spoked front wheel. And but Fignon had an aero helmet. Fignon rode in the last time trial with no helmet, with just the hair flying. And Greg wore a Giro aero helmet. And they worked out that if Fignon cut his hair, he would have won the Tour de France. Fact.
and another fact, and George will confirm this, in that year, the Tour de France actually went for 12,500 kilometres.
12,500, yeah.
All of around France, Spain, Italy.
It was the only time it went over Everest, I believe.
Yes. So not only did the hipster movement emerge, but the Everesting movement.
Well, that's where Everesting
emerged
came from.
as well. So Phil, you've been over to France recently for the Tour de France. How was it?
It was great. Very hot, having a heat wave over there coming into the tour, and it was everybody's talking about record temperatures.
Yeah.
So
And they
very warm.
had a new stage, a new cole that they haven't ridden before. Can you tell us a bit about that? Lassettes or something?
Yes. The Lassettes Vernier, we'll call it. It was a very spectacular climb, and it was the top was only 10 k's to the finish, so spectacular day.
Do you think we'll see that climb again in the tour?
I hope so, because I'm intending to take my guests over it next year, and hopefully to this. If we don't see the tour, I mean, something like that so spectacular, you just sort of stand at the top looking down at all those turns, and you think, why the hell would you bring a road up a hill like this? But it's just like, back in, I don't know, iceberg days, it must have been like there must have been some sort of landslip or something, and between these two huge rocks, and they just built a road on that slip, and it's just it's fantastic.
It's a little known fact, actually, that Phil is also a geologist who did study iceberg times when he was at uni.
In fact, on his rest days, he's director sportive. Who was your director sportive, out of interest, Phil?
Well, I had a number of them since I was over a number of teams.
Who was your favourite?
My favourite? A director's a bit like a commissaire. It's not something that you really love. It's sort of, it's a bit like a policeman of the team. And so it's more sort of a love-hate relationship. Sometimes you need them when when your teammates aren't listening to you need somebody else to come in and
Give him a swift kick up the arse.
Yeah, or put the fist on the table. And I had a number of directors. It's important. It's important to have a good, strong director that the riders respect. So
And my understanding is your director sportifs used to get upset because of your interest in geology. On the rest days, you'd
Where's
be
this
going out,
going?
Always in the library.
picking up
Phil.
heavy rocks, trying to split rocks with your bare hands to see the marbling effect inside, because that's French rocks are famous for their marbling effect.
They feed them a special grass that gets them a better marbling effect. Where the hell are we going with
And in
this?
fact, if you look at videos of Phil in
This
the
is off
tour,
track even for us.
you can see like blood all on it and crust and stuff on his hands.
Well, and he
where
tried to
he's-
show Bernard Hino one of those rocks one day. He said, Bernard, look at this, crack. And then,
check out the rock.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the Vuelta, Phil.
Yes.
The Vuelta's coming
The
up.
tour finished, and before we know it, we're into the Volta.
that's right. Only a few weeks rest.
Which this year they're having in Spain, I believe. Again. Is that right?
That's right.
It was such a success last year, they're doing it again.
I don't think it's actually leaving Spain.
Oh, okay.
Wow. So
right.
that's interesting. And does that tell us a little bit about the Spanish versus the French? Like the French seem to be happy for the tour to go to Holland, and there's even a stage in Tasmania next year for Richie Port, whereas the Volta all in Spain.
But that's because the food's all good in Spain.
Yeah, that's
The only
true.
reason they keep leaving France is because the food
to
sucks.
get some good food,
Yeah.
to get some Tasmanian produce.
How many
Yeah.
croissants can you eat?
A lot. So Phil,
Apparently so.
it's pretty much a replay of the tour. We've got, tell us the lineup.
You've got pretty much everybody that you had at the Tour de France, except Contador.
No Conti.
No Contador.
Just
I'm
And,
guessing Tony
if
Martin
you-
won't be there either.
You know, obviously, you finish one race, you start another, you can start with a fresh team. So, Orica Green Edge is actually going to be fielding a much stronger team than what they finished with at the end of
I thought
the
they
Tour
would
de
have fielded the
France.
same team because they basically rested for the whole of the tour anyway, didn't they?
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. How good is it to have a heckler in the crowd? Welcome, Barry.
Barry-
It's great.
Barry's
to have you
heckling
along.
already. Great
So,
dancer too.
Back to the Volta. Billy Joe.
I was just about to say that we know there are going to be all the big names from the tour are going to be there. I'm hoping some of the long names are going to be there as well, like the climbers from what was the African team?
Yes.
What was it called? MTB something.
Fact check.
MTB Chewbacca. the team
MTB
was called.
Chewbacca, that's right.
And my favourite rider on that team, who actually wore the polka dot jersey in his first tour, I think his name's Daniel Take Your Hyman Off.
Yes.
He represented Africa very well. I think he's a good shot at possibly wearing the jersey again in the Vuelta.
Now,
Yeah,
Billy
that's right.
Joe.
Yes,
Yeah,
Daniel
you go.
Take Your Hyman Off. He's a very tall man.
He is tall.
And I'm excited to see him climb it again.
Yeah. And I'm excited to see Froome Dog go around again because, BJ, when you were on the track, you had an amazing pedalling style. And I believe that
surprised.
you've been giving Froome some pedalling coaching.
Well, we did. We've tried to put him on the fixed gear a couple of times just to see, but with that pedaling style that he's got, every time we'd give him a push start, he literally would just buck and throw himself over the handlebars. So we're not sure what we're going to do.
Back in the day, Phil, when you had a patron of the peloton, for those in the crowd who aren't aware, can you just explain quickly what the patron of the peloton, what their role was?
The patron of the peloton is somebody that is a spokesperson or somebody that determines certain situations within the bunch. You know, when's a good time to pee. If someone needs to be told off or needs to be corrected in maybe their pedaling style.
Yes.
They can be directed by that patron.
And in your day, the patron, is that how you say it?
Patron.
The
Patron.
the popcorn of the peloton was
Popcorn?
Bernard Hino. What would he have said to Chris Froome?
He would have said, "Get that can of Coke out of my face." That's what he would have said.
He would have told him to get some elastic bands around those elbows and tidy things up a little bit.
Pull it all in because it is an ugly style. Now, Billy Joe, you speculated Broom Froome during the tour. I'm interested in your thoughts on e-bikes, not on eBay. No one cares about eBay. So Norm, our producer, the guy who finances this show, he speculated that e-bikes are the future.
Well, my personal thought on it is, look, and who cares? That's a good point. That's I do agree with that. Who cares? But
I agree.
there are people who are saying, look, if it's going to help people get out and ride and get up the hills and so that they can enjoy the downhill, I can see that side of things. In that same vein, why don't we start giving elderly people baseball bats so that they can compete in the UFC? I mean, if we're going to just let everybody do anything, that makes sense to me.
Good call. And is everyone in the crowd familiar with what I'm talking about when I talk about e-bikes? So Norm's got this idea that maybe we put a little 150, 200 watt engine in a bike.
Not unlike Chris Froome's.
Which no one would ever believe that Chris Froome has an engine in his bike. And help him. Mostly Norm wants to be able to ride with his wife again, who rides very fast.
I actually hadn't considered that. If my wife was a multiple world champion, I probably would need an engine to go riding with her too.
Most of us need an engine to keep up with Jess. Phil, your thoughts on e-bikes?
There's possibly a place for them, out in the biking community. Certainly not in the racing community. I mean, I know there's been all sorts of rumours and speculation about, because you can actually conceal a 150 watt motor within a bike and you can't tell the difference. All there is a tiny button, but the motors have become so small now. They're actually in the tubes, and the batteries, of course, the tubes of bikes now can be rather large, and it only adds, I think it's less than 2 kilograms to the weight of the bike. So,
and the ones I've seen look like almost like a frame pump, like they're just like a little thing that just slides down the. But they look like a little candlestick thing that they slide down a seat tube. And the cyclist, all he has to do is basically keep a straight face, and no one ever questions it. I've heard that they are being used in athletics on the running, where they have to insert them, where the runners have a lot more trouble keeping a straight face, and so they're getting caught a lot more often than the cyclists.
So you could easily tell who's got them then,
Well, just the
because
guy smiling.
there'd only be one person going up the hill with a straight face.
Well, that's true. Especially when you can't tell with Froome because he's looking down at his Garmin the whole day. So maybe that's why he's looking down the whole time. You heard it here first, folks.
What we'd like to do now is open up the... Am I going too early with this? No? We'd like to open up... We've got 2 cycling legends here, and we'd like to give people in the audience an opportunity to ask whatever question you like. Is that... Yeah? Yeah,
anything.
We're not going to put any limits on it. We probably won't divulge details about Phil and Lance's mum. We'd like to keep that.
If you want to find out about that, you can just go back on YouTube and listen to the previous episodes, because the story gets told there.
So if you'd like to ask Phil a question or Billy Joe, I'm even happy to talk about my cycling career. If you want to, that time I rode up Skeens Creek or something.
I want to know from each of you who you think is the greatest female cyclist of all time and why.
That's a very, very easy question to answer. Because as some people here might know, I'm obsessed with MMA and the UFC and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And they're forever banging on about how Ronda Rousey is the greatest female athlete of all time because she's defended her world title, I think 5 or 6 times now. Anna Meares, how many? 10? Something like that? And yet...
A lot. Fact checker?
10 world titles? Correct. Thank you, George. So it's got to be Anna Meares. I mean, for somebody in their event and who's been completely dominant despite some big ups and downs. What about who?
Marianne Voss.
Never heard of her.
She used to play for Brisbane Lions.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
she did. And then she went on to coach as well.
She was coach. She was
okay, no, I take it back.
a terrible
Marianne Voss,
coach.
definitely.
Now, what amazes... Social media is an amazing thing. And something that amazes me about Anna Meares, she won 10 million world track titles.
That's right.
Who remembers that ABC documentary where Anna Meares did that box jump? Isn't it amazing? So she wins 10 world titles, gets hardly any attention, does one freaking 10.5 metre box jump, and everyone's all over her. Phil, favourite female cyclist?
Yeah, I was going to say Marina Voss because, she's...
Sister of Marianne Voss.
Yeah. but she's showed that she's, a superb athlete on the track, off-road as well, cyclocross, and world champion on the road. But you go back a few generations, Gina Longo, even though she had a checkered past right at the end of her career, somebody that was dominant.
Checkered flags and a checkered past. Definitely.
And so from her teens right through up until through her 30s, and she's possibly still racing. Well, no, I think they've stopped her racing now, but yeah, right up into her 50s. I think I remember seeing her. I think it was in Athens. She was attacking, and she was in the as a sort of a late 40s. She was still very competitive. So yeah, it's a generational thing.
It's an excellent question, Kira. Mine, very quickly, would be Gunrita Dahl, who is a mountain biker. I think this year she turned 43. She's a mother of one and won a World Cup. And continually, as the courses get more technical, her skills, like she's now jumping doubles, which most 43-year-old women aren't.
I need to give honourable mention here in the spirit of respecting the transgender community, to give a shout out to Henk Vogels, who now will go down as one of the greatest female athletes of all time as well.
I've got one for Phil. I grew up with Phil as a poster boy on the back of my doors and walls at home. What was your best team experience? Because you've been at quite a few different teams over your career, Phil.
Was it the time Lance tried to set you up with his mum? Sorry, we've done this story. We've done this story several times. Go with another one.
No, look, I think it's fantastic being on a winning team, and when I was on the Panasonic team, sort of the mid '80s. I was always over here preparing early season, and I'd get over there maybe 2 or 3 weeks into the season when it's already started. And by the time I got there, the team had already won like 10 or 15 races. In the first couple of weeks, like more than one a day. Because we had several teams. That was fantastic. And you come into a room, into the dining room or something like that, when it's just your teammates and the management of the team, and you feel that energy of being in a winning team. That's wonderful. The opposite to that, of course, is going into a room with a team that hasn't won a race for a number of months, which is very difficult, especially if you're the team leader and you've got to try and pick up the ball every day and try and gee the lads up.
But we still love you, Orica Green Edge. We still love you.
Mine's to Billy Joe, actually. I feel sorry for Adam because nobody's going to ask him a question. But Billy, you recently went to Melbourne for a week and just took a week off work and just left your family to fend for themselves while you went and got a tattoo.
Correct.
Can you tell us about that?
Well, it is. I'm not a very reliable person, Barry, and sometimes I just wander off. But I did get a sweet tattoo, if we can just zoom in on that there. That is in honour of the little man that you just saw sitting here, because his name is Manoa, which means son of the sea, and there is some sun and some sea and a volcano, because he thinks volcanoes are awesome. Is that right, champ? Burned by my own child. And you ask why I go away for a week. No, he's the best.
I've got a question for Phil. In your time in the peloton, is there anyone who we would know, no one obscure, who you just really would not want to have a beer with? Who you just found, I just cannot stand that bloke? And are you allowed to name names?
Oh, look, it's amazing. Like, I retired, 20 years ago now. And over time like that, you do, when I retired, you do have people that that you don't want to share time with. You don't want to sit down and have a beer with. But over time, those memories are somewhat faded, and those incidents which really pushed you over.
What he's saying is Lance Armstrong.
Well, yeah. So, yeah. I mean, the Lance thing. That's pretty hard for anybody to forgive. And Lance was a good friend of mine, and as these guys talk about his mum. But no, Lance and I were really close back in the day, and but still, what he went on to do is just inexcusable. So I guess Lance, in case, is somebody that I wouldn't forgive, and yeah.
Wow. So, Phil, just going back to Lance for a second, the elephant in the room. Something I was flabbergasted to hear you say is that pretty much right till the end of his career, you were a true believer. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I went down with the ship because I believed that it was just a lot of skeptics out there against Lance, and I think until I read the book, Hamilton's book, I didn't believe any of it, and then it all fell apart, and I mean, I felt pretty bad because I was there waving his flag for the longest time, and I think myself and Phil Liggett, and you just feel like a fool, when you're in the media a bit and up there sort of shaking your fist at all these people who are so negative against Lance and the talk about drugs. And I mean, when I was racing with him, which is, as I said, many years ago, he was just like a young kid, not long out of triathlon, and very naive, and eager to hear about the stories of how to look after yourself, how to race, how to be a pro, and to see what he became was just a shock.
I think we all agree that triathlon is the problem. If we could just keep triathletes out of cycling, we wouldn't have these issues. I mean, Richie Port, crappy triathlete, as you've said time and time again, Adam. I did have a very brief story when you talk about the, coming down to a room with a team that's won a race or something. There's a very different atmosphere to walking into the dining room with a team where something great has happened and there's we're all celebrating. My very first tour I ever rode in Europe was a race called the Bergamasca in Italy. There's a week in Bergamo. It's a 14-day race. I think on the second or third stage, Stewie O'Grady was on our team, and Shane Bannon geared us all up. He said, it's a flat stage. We're going to hit the front 10Ks out and we're going to lead Stuart out. And we literally, on the 10K flag, all the Australians on the front, and we rode like a team time trial to the finish. We hit the last corner. We literally, no one else hit the front. We had the whole bunch single file. We came out of the last corner with 400 metres to go. I came out second on Brett Aitken's wheel, and the bunch sprint ensued. I finished in the 70s. With the 12 cog wound out. Stewie finished second on that stage, and we were so excited that after dinner that night, we all snuck down to the hotel that we were staying in. We snuck down to the little, not cafeteria, what do they call it? Whatever it was. But anyway, where they were selling gelati. We snuck down there, and we were all having chocolate gelati. And Shane Bannon came down, our coach, and he walked in and he said, "What are you guys doing?" And we were like, "We're just celebrating." And he said, "You don't celebrate second place. When I was a professional cyclist, I wouldn't have ice cream unless I won a huge stage in a big, big race." And he stormed out. And James Cross looked at us and he went, "Shane's never had ice cream." Ladies and gentlemen, we have to say a huge thank you to the Analog Academy for having us here tonight. And so I guess we're going to leave it at that. I just tape it off and dribbled off into shit right there.
Thanks for watching, ladies and gentlemen.
From myself, the has-been, Billy Joe Shearsby.
Myself, the know-it-all, Adam Kelsall.
And the has-been. No, there's too many has-been.
He's so modest he can't even say the word legend. From the legend, Phil Anderson.
Woo!
Let's get the hell out of here, boys.
Oh, yeah, that's it.